Hey everybody, I'm going to do a quick video on how I'm going about restoring my SNES to its original color. A lot of people know that SNESs turn this ugly yellow. This one, they say yellow, but it's kind of more of like a brownish yellow. It looks like it was in a room where somebody heavily smoked for years or something like that. But there's actually a chemical inside that Nintendo used, I believe it was bromine, which is a very useful flame retardant. However, when the system is exposed to oxygen and UV light, such as the sun or even an internal UV light, over time, it gets this ugly little brown yellowish thing going on. I think for some reason, as you can see, this little square here is still the color it's supposed to be, and the back here where this port is still the same color. So I think they might have used a different kind of, or didn't put the stuff in that or whatever. I'm not sure exactly the reason why certain parts yellow and certain parts don't. But anyway, I recently bought this and I want to restore it. I did some research and there's this stuff called Retro Bright, but it's not that hard of a process, but I didn't feel like going out and buying 4 different ingredients and mixing them, and one of the things said put it in the microwave for 20 seconds 3 different times and mix it up and all this. I didn't want to mess with that. I actually found an answer on another YouTube video, and I would like to give credit, but I don't remember the name at the moment. But anyway, there's this stuff. It's called Salon Care Cream, and this is pretty much the main ingredient, or the main ingredient is in this that you would use for Retro Bright, which is hydrogen peroxide. You can buy a bottle of this. This is 32 fluid ounces on eBay or Amazon. I got this for 10 bucks. The hydrogen peroxide you can get over the counter at a pharmacy is, I think I read it was like 3% hydrogen peroxide, whereas this is 40%, hence 40 volume cream. And the cool thing about this is you don't have to mix anything. Basically, this is in paste form, and it's exactly what you need to do. Is if you were to mix Retro Bright and use that, this is the same thing, it's just ready to go. So yeah, I would highly recommend doing that. I haven't actually tried it yet. This is my first attempt at this and I thought I'd just film it so I could show you my results and see how this works out. But anyway, so yeah, I bought this, and then to disassemble your SNES, as you see I've done here, you will need a 3.5 millimeter security bit, which I think I have here. I apologize, it's a 4.5 millimeter security bit right here. I think it actually says it on there, right there. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, that doesn't matter. I did have a security bit just like this that was this length, and it didn't have this little extension here, which is narrower, which is important. If you don't have one like this where it extends further out and is narrower at this point, then from what I've noticed, your standard screwdriver, or I guess screwdriver bit holder, whatever you want to call it, which this fits into, such as this, which is a magnetic one, so it just goes in there. Sorry, I'm trying to do this with one hand here. Give me a second. There you go. Like that. That extra extension is important because where it's narrower, how you have to unscrew this thing in the back, which is 6 screws. The 2 in the middle you can get at with a standard bit right here, but the 4 on the outside, it goes down about 3/4 of an inch or so. And the problem with using a bit that doesn't have this this little extension is that the circumference of the bit holder is barely fits in the hole. I mean, it's rubbing against the plastic, and when you go to turn it, you're basically ripping up the plastic inside that hole, which I guess isn't a big deal because you're not going to see it, but it kind of bothered me, so I ordered this, which gave me more than enough clearance, and it actually grabbed better than the shorter one. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyway, once again, that is a 4.5-inch security bit, which will open your SNES. Here's the parts I took apart. I probably should have showed that process, but I'm just gonna try to reverse explain this. I recommend making like a little drawing, such as this one, just so you remember which screws go where. I wrote 1 and 2 because when you have the SNES upside down, I have this orientated just like my drawing, back, front, and then 1 represents a piece that you take off with these. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, and then 2 is another piece you take off, and it looks like I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. So yeah, basically on the top here, basically you're going to take off your SNES, and this view is that right there. All the stuff's out of it, obviously, but you're going to take off basically just 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Those 4 screws, and then once you take off those 4 screws, this block right here is actually this piece here, and that's about right here on your, let's see, yeah, right about here on your SNES. Now, what freaked me out the first time is when I got all the screws off, I couldn't get this off, and I thought there was a hidden screw or a side screw I missed or something, but it's actually, it just plugs in to the circuit board. When the circuit board's in here, this is the circuit board here, there's all these metal clips to it, but basically that plug right there is what it plugs into. So if you have some resistance with this, don't be scared, just pull it out. It basically has the same resistance as a SNES cartridge does in the game slot. So you unplug that, and then as you can see here, this is a whole piece here. All this stuff is connected. Apologize for my, there we go, horrible camera work here. But this is the front of the system where your controller ports go into, and it's actually a ribbon connects through another metal plate. I don't think this is supposed to unplug. If it does unplug, let me know, but I just kept it there because there's no reason to disconnect it. So this little piece of metal just kind of stays in between that ribbon wire. And then this box basically stays on, but you have to take, well, I guess you don't have to take off that piece, but it just made it easier for me for that block to come off. So that's number 1. And then number 2, the first 2 screws on that part is the cartridge connector right here. So you just take off 1, 2, and it pops off. And just put that aside. And you got the eject slot, which this actually, there's a piece in the system where this is actually going to, there's a spring on this side that just goes on that rod, and the rod goes through there, and the bottom piece of the spring is actually going to go in this tiny hole right there. If you can keep it on, and it makes it easier to remember how to put it back together, go for it. So here's the tiny spring there. I took it off just because it made it easier for me. This might be a bit confusing explaining this backwards, not really doing it, but yeah, and then you'll have another 5 screws on the bottom of it. And basically when you're taking this apart, it's multiple plates. Like you're gonna have this is the bottom one, okay, and then this guy goes in here like this. I'm not really fitting it in here correctly, but there you go. Try to. I'm gonna have fun putting this guy back together, but it's not in there correctly, but you get the idea. This is the front of the controller ports that goes right there. There is a piece, and there's these 2 doohickeys. You don't want to forget when you're putting this back together. There's these 2 little square slots right there and right there. It goes boom, right, fits in there, and boom. If I can get it in there. I actually thought the SNES was a bit more complicated to take apart than the NES was, which I've done to replace my 72-pin connector and disable the security chip in it. You can do a search on that if you're interested in doing that as well. But anyway, then this I recommend unplugging. I think you actually have to unplug this to get everything out. Let's see, where did this guy go? This is just a switch that once you have these plates back in, well, you'll see this when you're disassembling it. This actually goes right there on these 2 screw holes. It actually has 2 smaller ones where it'll line up in there, like just like that. And that's actually the power switch. You know, when you switch this on and off, like I'm gonna switch the power here. That's off. That's on. And this piece of plastic right here, when the system's together, basically goes around that black switch. These 2 wires, once the circuit board is back in here, it basically plugs in right there. Or let's see. Horrible camera work, I apologize. Right there. Plugs in right there. And you just want to unplug that guy because it makes it a lot easier. Just things I ran into, whatever. There's a screw right here on the left box of the back of the system. It's a sideways screw, which you do not have to undo. And by the way, all the screws inside the system to take these plates off are your standard Phillips, so that makes it easier. But yeah, once you have it all apart, you should have the 6 screws from the bottom of the system, which takes the 2 halves apart. I don't know if different SNES systems are different as far as colored screws, but I had 4 silver, and here I have 9 gold screws. So you should have 19 when you're all said and done, and try to put them in a safe place so you don't lose one. And then basically the reason why you want to take this all apart is because I guess you could get away with doing it with it together, but the risk of that is you don't want this junk to ooze inside the system and crust it up and whatnot. You know, obviously it could go through the cracks in the eject port, or probably more likely the cartridge slot there. And one thing I want to mention too, and I actually got a heads up from another YouTube video, is that this 1-800 sticker on the back, which is Nintendo's world-class service maintenance hotline or whatever, with little Mario there. When you do slather this lawn care cream, hydrogen peroxide, on the system, it's going to, if this sticker gets heavily saturated, that's going to get wrecked. At the very least, it's going to wrinkle, or may start to peel or come off completely. I actually haven't come up with a solution. I think what I'm going to do in this portion is take a Q-tip or a paintbrush and just be very careful to keep the cream off of that sticker. There's obviously a few stickers on the bottom of the system, but these are, for some reason, I just feel that they're not in any harm. But this is just part one. I'm going to do a part two of when I actually put the stuff on, so you'll see, and I'll be able to tell you if anything gets harmed. But yeah, so that's the reason why you take it apart. And oh, the only other thing is, and keep in mind I haven't done this before, from guides I've read you can use the sunlight for this. I mean, actually the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cream on here, and then I'm going to get like a plastic tub, and I'm going to put it inside the tub, and then I'm going to wrap it with saran wrap so that this stuff doesn't evaporate. I guess that's more important if you're doing this outside in the sun, but I think it's just as important if you're doing it inside. And I say inside because where I happen to live, I don't get very much sun where I have access to be outside in the apartments here. So I opted to go the route of using indoor UV light. I went on eBay and bought 2 of these. I don't know if this is going to be enough or how long it's going to be. I don't remember the wattage on this. I think these were like 13 watts or something. If you know, if that's not enough or you have personal experience with this, please let me know. But I'm just going to try these out at first. I'm going to bring 2 lamps, and I'm just going to basically let it sit there. These are actually LED UV lamps. These are specifically for growing plants. But I'm going to use them for this, obviously. So that's basically what reverses this process, is the hydrogen peroxide chemical on plastic, and then with UV light, chemical reaction will apparently reverse the process. So I'm going to give this a shot, and if you have any thoughts or comments, let me know. One of the sources that I came across, they did this for, I think they said they left the system out in the sun for like 2 weeks, which obviously was a cumulative time. You want to take it, if you're going to go that route, you're not going to want to leave it outside unless, you know, it's in an enclosed area that only you have access to or something like that. But so yeah, this is part 1, and I will get back to you when I start the second step. Thanks for watching.